Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 8 of the Beyond the Shadow of Doubt podcast. My name is Megan Skidmore, and I am a life transitions coach. I work with parents of LGBTQ plus kiddos of a conservative faith background. As of late, I also work with LGBTQ plus teens. I started this podcast to attempt to bring the traditionally taboo topic of doubt and questioning out of the shadows of shame and into the sunlight. Before jumping into today's message, I am proud to share that I recently became a member of the Dialogue Podcast Network, found at dialoguejournal.com/podcast network. The Dialogue Podcast Network features shows by Latter-day Saints who wish to bring their faith into dialogue with the larger stream of world religious thought and with human experience as a whole, to foster artistic and scholarly achievement based on their cultural heritage. I will link in the show notes this website, and I encourage you all to check it out. There's some great podcasts in this network. So moving on, I grew up in Arizona, and I remember always being on the lookout for shadows, especially in the summertime. If you're wondering why, bless you, then you most likely grew up where you experienced all 4 seasons. In Phoenix, it's well known that the seasons are tolerable, hot, really hot, and are you freaking kidding me? And then by about that time, you know the autumn is on its way because the license plate colors begin to change. Anyways, finding a shadow meant shade, and shade meant relief because the sidewalk covered by the shadow was at least 10 to 15 degrees cooler than the surrounding area, which was significant because for some reason we ran around barefoot, even in the summer. A shadow is defined as a dark area where light from a light source is blocked by an opaque object. Something, like the object, is blocking the light, keeping whatever is beyond it in shadow or in darkness. What does this have to do with the price of tea in China? Well, I have been thinking a lot about light, knowledge, and shadows since about a week and a half ago when I was on a Lift in Love support meeting Zoom call with fellow LGBTQ mamas of an LDS faith background. Allison Dayton, who is the founder of Lift in Love, was sharing a spiritual thought. She was sharing her gratitude for one of the blessings of temple worship in the LDS faith, which is the blessing of receiving further light and knowledge. It has stuck with me ever since, and so I've done my own deep diving. And so, as with everything, I went to the Google to do a search for further light and knowledge, and it brought up quite a few results. At the top of the list was a talk from 1973 given by Elder Joseph Anderson, and also a speech from 1978 by Elder Bruce R. McConkie. Last I checked the calendar is 2022, so I thought it was really odd that these two would show up at the top of this list. But I always make my preparation for this podcast a matter of prayer. And I genuinely felt guided in this work, so I dove in and I began reading. So here's what I share from Elder Anderson. He says this, and he was speaking specifically to some of the great knowledge that had come to man up to that time. The glory of God is intelligence. In other words, light and truth. All intelligence comes from God, and anyone whose mind is open to the development of inventions for the benefit and blessing of mankind receives that light and truth through study, through research, through inspiration and guidance from the Spirit of the Lord, whether that individual be a Morse, an Edison, an Alexander Graham Bell, an Orville or Wilbur Wright, or whoever he, and I add she or they, may be. How important is it, he continues, that we have the light of truth, which comes from the Lord himself. In fact, he has said, and he quotes Doctrine and Covenants 50, and that which doth not edify is not of God, and is darkness. That which is of God is light, and he that receiveth light and continueth in God receiveth more light, and that light groweth brighter and brighter until the perfect day. This teaches us a lot about what light is and how it is obtained individually. I love the idea that light begets more light. Those who continually seek it, continuing in God, will receive more and more, and it will grow brighter and brighter until the perfect day. Now, the word perfect has the potential to throw us off here if we're not careful. When translated from Greek, perfect denotes fullness or completion, an accomplished end. Nothing need be added or taken away. Perfect doesn't mean you've had a great hair day, or the scale finally says what you want it to, or that you or your spouse got that raise, or your kiddo who's been struggling got on the AB honor roll. It doesn't mean any of that. Okay, the doctrine of the restoration tells us that perfect day has not yet arrived. We are still seeking more and more light that will inevitably grow brighter. Okay, so what's the catch? Or is there a catch? Well, for starters, we have to want to seek said light. And by that, I mean have motivation. Motivation usually comes when something is near and dear to our hearts. It creates an impetus to seek for new knowledge and understanding. And that desire to know is driven by questions and doubts. Without asking questions that stem from having doubts, we will not get further light and knowledge. Doubts and questions are what compel one to seek answers. And as I said, since we know it's not that perfect day, we know there's still light and knowledge yet to be given and known. So I mentioned a second article, and this one was by Elder Bruce R. McConkie. It was actually a BYU speech in 1978. This was given a few months after the blessings of the priesthood were extended to Black members of the LDS Church. And he says, I would like to say something about the new revelation relative to the priesthood going to those of all nations and races. He, meaning Christ, who is the Lord God, inviteth them all to come unto him and partake of his goodness. And he denieth none that come unto him, black and white, bond and free, male and female. And he remembereth the heathen, and all are alike unto God, both Jew and Gentile. That's in 2 Nephi. I'll leave these in the show notes. And he continues, Elder McConkie continues, these words have now taken on a new meaning. We have caught a new vision of their true significance. A little bit further down, he goes on. We have revelations that tell us that the gospel is to go to every nation, kindred, tongue, and people before the second coming of the Son of Man. That means people from all nations will have the blessings of the house of the Lord before the second coming. He continues, we have read these passages and their associated passages for many years. We have said to ourselves, yes, it says that, but we must read out of it the taking of the gospel and the blessings of the temple to the Negro people because they are denied certain things. There are statements in our literature by the early brethren, which we have interpreted to mean that the Negroes would not receive the priesthood and mortality. I have said the same things, and people write me letters and say, you said such and such, and how is it now that we do such and such? Forget everything that I've said, or what President Brigham Young or President George Buchanan or whomsoever has said in days past that is contrary to the present revelation. We spoke with a limited understanding and without the light and knowledge that has now come into the world. We get our truth and our light line upon line and precept upon precept. We have now had added a new flood of intelligence and light on this particular subject, and it erases all the darkness and all the views and all the thoughts of the past. The brethren have had a great anxiety and concern about this problem for a long period of time. And President Kimball has been exercised and has sought the Lord in faith. When we seek the Lord on a matter with sufficient faith and devotion, he gives us an answer. Now, end quote. Now, I know this is a topic with great emotion for many, and the differing opinions surrounding it are not unknown to me. I share it because I feel compelled to, but I also share it purely as it relates to the topic of this podcast, and in this case, receiving further light and knowledge on a much larger scale, not just individual, as the previous example explained. I pose the question, if something isn't troubling, even to the point of great anxiety and concern, as Elder McConkie puts it, why would a person seek for additional insight? I surmise it's simple, they won't. And here's where we come full circle. The reason the anxiety and concern comes in the first place is because there was question, doubt, something missing, or like they didn't have all the pieces. Going back to my story about shadows in the Arizona summer, we could say there was an object blocking the light. That light existed, but something was blocking it, creating a space of darkness behind it, or the shadow. This proverbial object could be seen perhaps as ignorance of another's firsthand experience and pain, or a void of understanding, a lack of knowledge, or perhaps even bias. It really could be any number of things. I'm not here to name what those are. Leaders of the LDS Church are imperfect mortal beings. We all are. Thus, it could be various missing pieces that were blocked by the light and in the shadows. Given that the men who contributed to the coming forth of this revelation in 1978 were, and I'm speaking factually, white, cisgender males from the United States, those questions and concerns, the realization that something was in need of further light and knowledge, or that an object was blocking the light, had to come from other voices, the voices of those whom were affected. We are counseled to minister, to show compassion, to serve and love our fellow siblings, the humans with whom we share this beautiful earth. If you are to successfully do this, successfully serve, love, show compassion, attempt to put yourself in the shoes of another, you must listen more than speaking. One will miss the mark if they assume what is needed without first opening up dialogue, or in other words, be a true friend. Talk to them, let them share their story, their experience, their needs, their viewpoint, just in general, what life looks, feels, sounds like from where they sit. This does not include telling them what their story is for them. When we don't understand something clearly, why are we going to seek further clarification without a safe environment in which to seek it? I offer the response, we won't. However, ministering helps create this safe or safer environment. I leave you with this pressing question. What will motivate you to ask questions if you don't have doubts, or allow yourself to have them, or at least consider the possibility that there is more to something you currently believe or the way you understand it? The scriptures teach us that there is more, much more for us to learn. Even Elder Uchtdorf has said, how often has the Holy Spirit tried to tell us something we needed to know, but couldn't get past the massive iron gate of what we thought we already knew? If you have questions and doubts and you'd like to chat, let's get on Zoom. Let's set up a visit. Your first is complimentary. You can do that at my website, https://meganskidmorecoaching.com. Megan is spelled MEAGAN. And while you're there, you can get my recently added free LGBTQ plus resource guide for families. It is a 20+ page interactive guide full of resources that I have found and or used along my own journey. I make it easy for you to start yours with everything all in one place. It includes resources for the US and Canada and multiple conservative faiths, and I am continually adding to it. So you'll want to check back. Thank you so much for joining me today. Until next time, God bless.